In the year 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. Millions died in pursuit of conquering this unknown land. The European powers of the time took part in colonization, and the centuries after witnessed remarkable wars and a new age of influence. These events led to the birth of a new nation on July 4, 1776, the United States of America. Long before European colonization, the native peoples of North America had developed complex and sophisticated systems of society and government. Hundreds of thousands warred, made peace, and governed over specific regions, and had done so for thousands of years. By the time the first European explorers began to arrive, Native Americans had already established their communities for thousands of years. A Norse navigator named Leif Erikson learned of a land west of Greenland and sailed to what would be Newfoundland. They established a small settlement called L'Anse aux Meadows that was later abandoned. Searching for a faster route to India, Christopher Columbus, employed by Spain, discovered the West Indies in October 1492. Popularized as the New World by Amerigo Vespucci, it was open season for explorers, traders, and businessmen alike. By the 16th century, the Spanish, English, Portuguese, Swedish, Dutch, and French raced to map the East Coast. Early interactions ranged from welcoming to violent. First contact exposed Native Americans to European diseases with widespread illness and death. European powers began claiming sections of this new world as their own, with every major exploratory mission. To understand the story of this fascinating land, we must start from the very beginning. The first attempts to make permanent settlements began in the mid-16th century with varying degrees of success. In 1585, the English attempted to settle Roanoke, but harsh voyages and poor supply led to disaster. Tensions with local tribes turned violent, villages burned, aid delayed, and the colony was abandoned. When the relief mission returned in 1590, the colony was missing. Only the curious carving Croatoan remained. In 1607, the London Company founded Jamestown in Virginia, swampy, disease-ridden, and prone to famine. Captain John Smith reorganized the colony and established trade with the Powhatan, giving Jamestown a path to survive. Despite aid, the colonists endured famine and disease until structures of trade and agriculture stabilized the settlement. In 1619, Jamestown saw the arrival of 20 to 30 enslaved Africans, a grim start to 2.5 centuries of slavery in British North America. In 1620, the Puritan Pilgrims crossed on the Mayflower seeking religious freedom and legal right to self-govern. They drafted the Mayflower Compact, an agreement to govern themselves while remaining under the crown. The first winter was brutal. The colonists lingered aboard the Mayflower and built by day. Squanto, who spoke English, helped broker an agreement of non-aggression with Chief Massasoit, enabling survival in the 1621 harvest celebration. In 1614, the Dutch West India Company founded New Netherlands, building trade outposts and New Amsterdam on Manhattan. They purchased Manhattan from the Munsee Lenape and constructed Fort Amsterdam. In 1664, English frigates took New Amsterdam bloodlessly and renamed it New York. New York became a hub of trade and commerce, seat of a city that would always trade with the world. Spain established St. Augustine, the first permanent European settlement in North America, and pushed inland from Florida. France settled the St. Lawrence and dominated the fur trade, stretching influence down the Mississippi. In 1718, the French founded Nouvelle-Orléans, gateway to the Mississippi and the heart of French North America. By the 18th century, European empires carved the map of North America, often ignoring the native populations and their complex networks. Many Native Americans fought back. Acting as opportunists, tribes worked with and against European settlers. In 1675, a comet, called King Philip, led a devastating war against New England colonists. The conflict was brutal, villages destroyed, and the Wampanoag power was broken. From 1689 onward, imperial wars between England and France repeated across North America. King William's War and Queen Anne's War saw shifting victories and suffering for colonists and natives alike. Treaties returned borders but left deep grudges and undefined frontiers. By the 18th century, the triangular trade tied Africa, the Caribbean, and North America in a brutal commerce. Sugar and molasses fueled economies. Slave labor underpinned production across the Atlantic world. Millions of lives were commodified. An ever more valuable, grotesque sale of human lives. Incidents like the alleged mutilation of Captain Robert Jenkins stoked public outrage and war. Local clashes in Georgia, the Carolinas, and Florida erupted into larger imperial fights. Fighting stretched on, costly and often returning little. The capture and return of places like Louisburg left colonists frustrated. In 1753, a young major, George Washington, began a confrontation over the Ohio Valley that escalated into war. Washington built Fort Necessity, which surrendered, a spark that ignited a global conflict. The French and Indian War became part of the 7 Years' War, battles across continents and oceans. British victories on the St. Lawrence and in the Ohio Valley forced the French to surrender their North American empire. Casualties were high, thousands fought and died across the globe for control of empire. The 18th century saw a population boom in the colonies and an economy increasingly tied to Britain. Colonial governments matured, trade flourished, and the colonies became vital to Britain's global strength. A religious revival swept the colonies, the Great Awakening, reshaping faith and public life. Itinerant preachers and evangelical fervor challenged established churches and spread new ideas about salvation and individual rights. The spread of pamphlets and sermons created a shared public discourse across the colonies. Centuries of contact, conflict, commerce, and conviction set the stage for a new American story, shaped by pain and possibility. From these roots grew a nation that would claim independence, expand, invent, fight, and redefine itself, but always with a contested past. This is the beginning. Subscribe to continue the story through revolution, expansion, and the modern age.